Welcome back to the next episode of Discipline, Desire, and Dedication. I'm your host, Garrett Cotton. We're missing Dakota Lang today, co-host, but he'll be back on here soon. Today, we're very thankful and privileged to have Porter Hawkins with us today, a Utah native.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today, Porter?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in, kind of get a little background info on you. We know you're from Utah, but tell us how you got to where you're at today, what you're kind of doing, and a little info.
Yeah, man. To try to sum it up, pretty straightforward. Like you said, born and raised here in Utah. Grew up in South Jordan area. It's like 20 minutes from Salt Lake. Fast forward to kind of the important stuff. I got to the point in graduating high school, did kind of what everybody did, touring colleges, kind of seeing what the next step was going to be for me. It was going to take that kind of common route, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up actually in the LDS religion as well. So kind of the game plan was like you go on a mission, then you go to college, then you get married and XYZ.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, I just didn't feel called to all that stuff. Like for some reason, like whatever you were supposed to do in society's like view, I wanted to do the exact opposite for some reason. I don't know why. I guess you can call it the black sheep or whatever you want to call it. But so long story short, I was really close to going up to Utah State and do the whole business program and all that fun stuff. And I just kind of took a minute and was like, what am I even really doing this for? I'm not doing it for myself. I'm kind of just doing it because everyone around me is doing it, and that's kind of the normal thing to do. So kind of took a risk and didn't go to college, just kind of jumped in working after high school and got my real estate license. I grew up around real estate my whole life. I had a few family members in it, and so I saw kind of the lifestyle they were able to live and also the people they were able to help, and dove into it head first. Haven't looked back. Been doing it for over 5 years now and have loved every second. So that's a little bit.
Yeah. So 18 or 19 when you got your license?
I think I was 19 when I got my license.
I could imagine that's being a pretty big struggle. You
know?
Oh,
for sure.
So kind of dive into that a little bit of just like some of the challenges that you had to overcome with that.
Yeah. No. For sure. Well, obviously, aside from being 19 years old, like technically you're still a teenager. You can't even buy a drink yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was really, really young.
It's that mindset to it. You've never bought a house. How do you, how do you sell houses?
Exactly. No, and that honestly, we can get into that a little bit, but that was a big driver for me to want to have my own portfolio of real estate so that I not only could help people own real estate, but I can say, hey, I'm not just trying to sell you a product. I'm doing this right here with you, and this is how it's benefited me. But aside from being 19 years old, I got my license March of 2020. So COVID, right? Yeah. So COVID hit, and it was a blessing and a curse for me, honestly, because, 19 years old, trying to coach people and help people buy real estate. A lot of people are like, most average homeowners probably anywhere from 27 to 35 probably. So, a lot of people look at you like, well, yeah, you're 19 years old.
Yeah.
What do you know? So the first kind of 12 months of me having my license was just a bunch of learning and really just honing in on my craft and what I'm good at.
Did you have a good mentor in that period?
Yeah. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the people I've surrounded myself with. So kind of that first 12 months, like I said, I had family members in real estate and in the mortgage space. So a big thing some people watching may know, like when COVID hit, right? Like obviously everything kind of shut down, but the real estate market went insane.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody had stipends and money.
For sure. Everyone was getting paid money. And the biggest thing, which is not the case now, but interest rates, right, were 2.5%, under 3%, which had never been seen before. And so the buyers and people that we were helping in the market, at least first-time home buyers and stuff, they couldn't get a house, right? Because investors are buying these houses, and it's a little bit crazy, right, when interest rates were 3%. So actually how I got a really good kickstart to my career while kind of segueing into real estate and building that knowledge and expertise was my uncle worked for a mortgage company, and during that time, and I just went through and helped refinance all of their customers. So these people were sitting on 5.5%, 6% interest rates or 4% interest rates. And so we went through and helped hundreds of people refinance their homes.
And these are clients that he had already had prior, or is there a way that you can just go find?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was an easy kind of process for us because they were already people who had mortgages with this mortgage company. Awesome. So all we had to do is kind of reach out to them, just say, hey, we're from XYZ mortgage company. And obviously we weren't licensed mortgage lenders. But we were just teeing up the right things and just saying, hey, your interest rate is at this, interest rates right now are at 2.5% or 3% or whatever, do you want to refinance? And at most of the time, they were called streamline refinances, which means they're FHA borrowers, which means they can refinance essentially for no cost, which is a pretty big deal. So that was kind of what I grinded while I got into the real estate space, and that allowed me to make some good money and eventually actually helped me buy my first property, and then obviously get in more into the real estate space as I've grown over the last 4 or 5 years. Even though I'm still only 24, like I have enough of that experience and knowledge, just not only about how to help people buy real estate, whether it's their first property or first investment, but I've been able to acquire 5 rentals myself. And so that experience, has helped me tremendously, because even though I'm so young, the experience that I have by managing and purchasing these rentals, is priceless for me to be able to educate other people.
Facts. So. Yeah, no, that's really, really big. I think that's the hardest part for most people is to get started, because I mean it's something we've always said is we want to get into rental properties.
Yeah,
but we've never bought a house. So it's kind of like it's hard. And then one thing I would like to know: so for your rental properties, do you personally manage them, or is it kind of like do y'all have a company?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people ask me that because it's very common to get a property manager, right? Me personally, I manage all my properties. And when I say manage, honestly, I don't spend much time managing the properties.
It's a good tenant.
Like we were talking before, if you have the right systems in place and the right contacts in place, you really don't need a management company. Now, a lot of people, if they're not in the industry or they're buying their first rentals, obviously I understand that I have a little bit of an advantage because I'm in the industry. So I'm very knowledgeable about all the things that go into a rental property and, what that entails. But, it saves me, allows me to cash flow more on my rentals, especially right now where the market is a little bit tighter. Interest rates are higher. So I'm saving, that most property management companies can charge anywhere from 7 to 15% of a management fee, So being able to have that added to your cash flow is beneficial for the long term of things. But don't get me wrong, I think as I scale, 5 properties, as I scale into the multiple, double figures, 10 and 20 plus, and hopefully eventually into the 50 to 100 range. I probably can't do that all by yourself unless you're doing it full time.
So get into, did you buy a personal house first for yourself before you got into, the rental market, or kind of go into how you got started into the rentals?
No, for sure. So for people who know me and who have worked with me, or if you follow me on social media, I'm a huge advocate for like the best investment property that you can ever purchase is your first home. And what I mean by that, a lot of people say, well, your first home that you live in, it's not an investment, but it very much was for me, because a lot of people don't know this, or some people do, but for your first home, if you intend, we were talking about this a little bit, if you intend to occupy the property as a first-time home buyer, you can, in some scenarios, get in for no money down for that property.
Okay. Even from day one, if you're planning to rent the basement out or something, is that
day
what you're
one?
saying?
Yeah, day one. So you just have to intend to occupy some portion of the property for at least 12 months.
Okay.
And, circumstances can change and there's different things like that. But like how you and I were talking, certain loans, like if you're trying to buy a house right now, obviously that's for a larger property. But for investors, if you just said, hey, Porter, I want to go buy an investment property. I don't want to live in it. I just want it as a straight investment property. Most lenders are going to require 20% down. Right. Which, $500,000 house, let's say, you can either get in for no money and live there, or get in for $100K, and have it as an investment. And so for me, not starting out with much money, but being very motivated and knowing I wanted to own real estate, that's how I got in. And that's how that allowed me to To now fast forward, I've been able, all these properties that I purchased, I kind of like to joke, like I've bought them for the price of essentially one investment property, right? Because that total amount, a lot of people know it as house hacking. A lot of people, you can hear people talk about it online, but essentially the system has just been live in a house for about 12 to 18 months, move to the next one. Instead of selling that property like most people do, just keep them as rentals and kind of allow them to stack
Is that
up.
what you've done? You've lived in each one of these houses that you bought?
Yep, lived in each one for about 12 to 18 months. The first property, the very first property was the one exception that I bought. I didn't live in that one. And the only reason I was able to do that, and this is, a whole different conversation, but we actually were able to use creative financing to purchase this property. I know it's a big thing right now that a lot of people are talking about, whether it's seller finance or subject to. But that first property, I actually partnered on with my dad and my brother. It was actually a client of ours that was trying to sell their property. And back in that market, it was just, prior to COVID hitting, the market was just kind of stagnant. And so we actually offered him a seller finance on the property, and that's how we were able to acquire that one. So that was the only exception. Like, we didn't have to put a large amount down because he was essentially being the bank for us and carrying that note. Yeah. But we don't need to get too much into that.
I've heard people talk about that kind of stuff as well. But
yeah, it's becoming more popular. If you follow different real estate influencers or stuff online, a lot of people talk about buying houses, creative finance, which is a great avenue. I've purchased house on creative finance, but I would say the best strategy for me has been to kind of stack up, live in a property, and only have to put, the most I've ever had to put down on properties, even if it's your second, third, or fifth property, is 5% down.
Yeah,
so
that's nice.
That's pretty affordable compared to like 20% down. Right?
Yeah, no, it's an eye opener for my situation. Just for the viewers, went to go put down 10%, and then they were like, "Yeah, for this house, you should probably put down 20." And I'm like, "Well,
yeah,
we're gonna have to wait a couple months. That's a big difference."
Yeah, so. Well, and I mean, you're in a different situation. You're obviously talking to you before. You're in a blessed situation where you can stack up a quick amount of cash in only a couple months. For the average person, right? That's where like I help mainly the average person or first time home buyer, whatever you want to call it, start building wealth through real estate. That's kind of what I focus on. That's what I'm most passionate about. Most people, for them to save up 20% or let's say $100,000 or whatever, that's going to take them not months but years, maybe multiple years, right? And so the biggest advantage for me in real estate has been time in, right? So that first property I purchased 5 years ago, and my equity and all these benefits have compounded over the years, where if I were to just have waited to do it the traditional way, right, save up 20% down, buy my first property, I would have just probably been barely, or maybe in the last few years, barely been buying that property. And I would have missed out on all that equity appreciation and all that gain,
It comes with action. Yeah, you just got to start. I think that's the biggest thing, is getting started.
Oh, for sure.
And for me, I've been that person that's like waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
And it's there's never a right time.
No,
you just got to get in there and get your feet wet.
Yeah, for sure. And at the time, like a prime example is like, we thought because we bought that first property just like it was right around when COVID was hitting. And so we thought, oh man, this is going to be a bumpy ride, right? Like we just bought our first property and then the whole world shut down. And that kind of is the testament. Like there's not going to be a perfect time. Like in most people's eyes, that was probably the worst time to buy a house. But now hindsight, looking back 5 years, is actually a really good time, right? So you kind of have to, like you said, you kind of have to jump in as soon as you can afford to, as soon as you're able to. A lot of people joke like the best time to buy a house was 25 years ago, right? Which we all probably would have bought a house if most of us weren't even alive, right? A lot of people watching this podcast or whatever, are probably younger than 30. So
I'm curious too. A lot of our listeners, we have a lot of listeners from our company who are kind of like following the same route that we're following.
Yeah.
What do you think would be the best route for somebody like us? Like, would it be smarter my mindset is just, I've never bought a house. We're moving to Utah. I know with my promotion, I'm going to be here for like at least 10 years. So it just makes sense to go get something where we can just be comfortable and be there.
Yeah, totally.
But situationally, people who are coming up in door to door, do you think it's smarter to wait until they're in a position like that, or should they start small, maybe like duplexes or stuff like
Yeah.
that? Like, what would you do if you were in
Yeah,
this role?
that's a great question. And obviously, like you said, every person's situation is different. Like you mentioned with your situation, you're looking to buy, a nice home that your family can be comfortable in for the next decade.
Yeah.
But, based off what I've done, I think if someone's coming up in door to door, you're making good money and you're starting to stack up your chips, just based off of what the benefits I've seen, I would for sure, especially if you're single and don't have kids yet, like if you're not married and you don't have kids and you're just kind of grinding those younger years, buy a property that you can live in, own or occupy it, put no money down, or at very least 3% down.
So really, the biggest thing is getting involved with the real estate agent that knows is it the real estate agent or the lender that kind of has all these options for you?
It's both. A lot of times the real estate agent is the one who can kind of segue you and connect you to the right people, whether it's a lender or whatever that may be. So I think if you by chance already have a relationship with a mortgage lender or whatever that that's a great step. But yeah, it's like getting in connect with somebody like me, not only who has helped many door-to-door people do this exact thing, and just other entrepreneurial people, because myself, I was an entrepreneur, sales guy, whatever you want to call it, purchasing a lot of properties that if I were to just follow the standard route, I wouldn't have been able to do, right? Yeah. So getting somebody in your corner that has those resources and can really not only indoctrinate the right mindset in you of like the benefit of owning property as soon as you can and the benefit of buying property at a young age, and when you don't have maybe other liabilities like a wife and kids, like obviously that's a blessing, right? But my biggest advantage was I bought multiple properties before I was even married. And so I was able to rent out rooms and do some creative stuff to help kind of launch me forward in owning real estate in that portfolio. So step one would for sure probably be getting in contact with somebody like myself or somebody that who has a lot of knowledge when it comes to these things, and more specifically owns properties, right? Has walked the walk, right? Not just is selling you a product or telling you to do something.
Do you say that you would have do you have any clients in your past that come to mind that you've helped to maybe even project more rental properties than you're currently having? Or I guess a better question would be, you've added more value to those people. Like is there any one person in particular that comes to mind where you've really helped them out in this journey? Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if I've been really blessed to help hundreds of people, throughout these last handful of years. A couple, if I were to say two scenarios that can be applicable, one being somebody who's a complete first-time home buyer that is looking to get in the game, and then one being actually not a door-to-door salesperson, but a high-level executive at a door-to-door company. Just recently, the first one was a first-time home buyer. Long story short, is a couple. They really wanted to get into their first home. They were, saving really hard, and, they wanted to save up what they were told was the right amount of down payment to have, right? Which a lot of people say 20% or 10%, right? Not a lot of people are familiar with no money down loans for first-time home buyers. Yeah. Long story short, got connected with this couple and was able to help educate them on those programs. We were actually able to fast track their timeline of getting into a home, which they were super excited about. And so they were able to, there's a bunch of opportunities to say the least right now in this market because of interest rates and the unforeseen, things that a lot of people talk about. For a lot of people that they see it as a disadvantage, for people like I'm helping, it's a huge advantage. And so we were able to negotiate a great deal for these people on their first home and actually get them into that house for no money down. And their plan is to kind of follow the same process that I've done, is kind of live there for 12 to 18 months and then convert that actually into their first rental. That's awesome.
And a lot of people who are into investing, like your ROI, right, or your return on investment is purely based off how much capital you have invested in an investment, right? So if you have no money invested, right, your returns are infinite.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't even really put a number because now you have an asset that you really didn't have to pay much money for that's appreciating and growing. And then once they convert that into a rental, it's really going to traject their net worth and they're just everyday, normal, average people, which I think that's what I find passionate in is like, you don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be this guy who's got hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in real estate, right? Like you can get in with very little to no money and really, if you do it right, play your cards right, compound that into multiple properties, right?
Yep. And the best thing to do is, what did you say? Is it better? I've heard stuff where people are like, go get pre-approved first before talking to people. If you're coming in with like looking for that no money down option, is there kind of like a starting point? Like who's the first person to talk to?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, the first person to talk to, just because a lot of people don't know who has access to those programs, honestly, just be frank, is myself, right? So if people are watching this and they see it and they're like, how the heck I've never heard of no money down, or I've never even, knew that was an option. If that could benefit somebody, like the best person to connect to is myself. Cause then, like I said, what I can do is then connect you to the right people who have access to those lending programs. Cause it's anytime I talk to somebody about no money down, it's not, nobody's already like, oh yeah, I already knew about that before I talk to them and tell them about it. Yeah. So that's why it's like, if you somehow stumble upon the lenders that offer it, then that's great. But we just work with these people every single day. And so the relationship that we have with them is really special, and we're able to help a lot of people because of it. And not just for first-time home buyers, but for also first-time home investors too. So I wanted the second scenario, kind of to add to your point of like someone who I've really been able to help, was this executive. He's worked for a door-to-door pest control company, as high up in the company. He's not like a door-to-door salesperson, but he, long story short, he wanted to purchase investment properties. He was facing a large tax burden, which a lot of people, when you reach a certain tax bracket, you're facing that. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on, with helping investors, is not only finding you properties that are going to generate income and help your net worth, but are also going to save you a lot of money in taxes.
That is true. I've never even I'm brand new, because keep in mind, like 3 years ago, I had no money.
Chili's, right?
Yeah, struggling big time. So over the last 2 years, like we've gotten, financial advisors to kind of help get an account set up, to be able to buy a house with money that goes away. Setting money aside for taxes, because again, I'd never made enough to pay taxes. To be honest with you.
That's awesome.
So serving tables, I was like, oh, Chili's, they take it out my paycheck.
They just take it out, right? You never see it.
So I've never paid taxes. I never had to do any of that. So it was a lot of learning over these last 2 years. So hiring like a CPA, but for me, I've always thought like you have to think of tax strategies with your CPA, like for sure. And that's like the best way to fix your taxes.
Oh, for sure.
But I guess that's good to know, especially like for investors and stuff like that, to be able to kind of write some money off as well.
Oh yeah, totally. I think it depends on who your CPA is. But a lot of times, in our situation, because we have this knowledge, again, going back to owning rental properties and knowing these tax strategies, using them ourselves, we can help educate people. And especially in Utah, right? Utah is a fairly expensive market. I think we're the 5th or 6th most expensive market in the United States.
Louisiana is like $220 for a house. So
that's a great place to buy your first rental. If you want to get one for sub $100,000. But
are you only licensed in Utah?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, only in Utah, and actually, all my properties that I own are currently in Utah. More so because that's my own backyard. It's what I know the best. But as well as I believe a lot in the long-term growth of Utah. I mean, Utah is expensive, but if you can grab, even if it's one piece of real estate, in 10, 20 years, you're going to be really happy about it. Because if you look at California right now and the expensive real estate there, like Utah is not far behind there. It could be 10 years, 15 years, but like things are going to continue to get more expensive. And for people trying to get in, that's not great news to hear. But if you're able to just grab even one piece of real estate, you're going to be really happy about that.
Yeah.
But kind of back to back to this person that we just recently helped. So he needed a tax benefit, right? He needed a vehicle to save money on taxes, right? And a lot of people investing in real estate, they actually don't even realize the benefits and the value that real estate provides you when it comes to a tax saving standpoint, right? Everyone focuses on cash flow, right? Which cash flow is great, right? And appreciation and all that stuff. But especially here in Utah, one of the biggest benefits is depreciation, aka tax savings, right? So if you're a high income earner, you're an entrepreneur where you don't just work a W-2 job, or if you do work a W-2 job and you're still a high income earner, you're facing large tax bills that you need different write-offs for. And if you're W-2 specifically and you're earning a high income, you can't write off much, right? Yeah. Real estate is actually probably one of the only vehicles that you can get these tax savings for. And so long story short, we were actually able to help this guy. Again, going back to, because of our expertise and the connections that we actually have that access to a loan where you can buy an investment property, right? Which most lenders will tell you 20% down. That's what you need, or even 25% down. Mm-hmm. We helped this guy buy 2 properties for 10% down each.
Oh, wow.
So why that's so big is, one, not only was he now able to buy 2 properties instead of 1, because he was already thinking, hey, I have 20% down, I'm ready to buy. So we were like, hey, let's compound the tax benefits, let's compound the ROIs, and helped him buy 2 properties for essentially the price of 1 investment property. And that's obviously going to double everything, right? It's going to double his cash flow. It's going to double his tax benefits. It's going to double his net worth and his equity growth. Yeah. So
for somebody like that, that's, he's probably a super busy guy.
For sure.
Do you help them to find management companies to kind of manage their properties, or do you recommend them to do that?
So that's a really great question. And because I work with we have a team that I work with, of a bunch of other guys. Across our team, we probably collectively own over 40 rental properties, whether it's a mixture between residential and commercial.
Yeah.
So the benefit when people come and work with us, for instance, you asked about this guy, like you said, he has more money than time, right? He has less time because he's a high level guy. He's super busy. And so that's actually an added benefit to working with people like us who have these experiences with rentals. Is we don't claim to be property managers. We are not property managers, but we have all the right tools to get your property up and running and profitable without necessarily having to pay high property management fees.
Okay.
So if people we have connections to property management companies that we've used and stuff like that, but even in a step further, that's better, is we'll just give them all the right plugins so they can just plug and play and have that rental property up and running as soon as possible without having to pay 10-12% in property management.
I always tell people in our door-to-door sales meetings, I tell people that you don't rise to the goals that you set for yourself. You fall to the systems.
Oh, yeah.
And so it sounds like you guys, especially 40 properties, you'll have systems in place that it's kind of like us opening a brand new market.
Totally.
After opening 5 markets, walking to the 6th, I know step by step what needs to be done.
Yeah, for sure.
So it probably took a little bit of time to learn that, but now having the right people on your team, it probably helps out a lot.
Oh yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing that overwhelms people when it comes to if you're buying your first investment or if you're converting your first property that you owned into an investment, is just getting tenants, just leasing the property, right? Because if you can't get tenants, right, you don't have rent, and then that's not a positive situation. So that's been the biggest benefit to us, is we actually have teams in place that will actually find and lease the property for you.
Okay.
And you do pay them money, right? But for people who have more money than time, it's a great avenue, and we're able to get that property up and running and profitable as soon as possible, so that anybody who owns rental properties knows vacancy, right, in a property is way more expensive than having the property occupied, right? So the key is getting that rolling as soon as possible. And so we really pride ourselves on, providing that service to our clients, even though we don't claim to be property managers, but we're managing our own properties every day. So we have all the right resources for them to plug into.
For y'all, the real estate company that you work with, is it a family real estate firm, or is it kind of like a EXP type stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. My license is held under a very small local brokerage. obviously there's these large MLM real estate companies where, they're great, right? And nothing against people who work for those companies. Kind of why I feel more drawn to the more local stuff is EXP. It's easy to get caught in. It's just like door to door, right? There's a very large recruiting aspect to it, right?
Absolutely.
And nothing against that, but my team and who I work with, we want to give as much resources and time back to the clients that we're helping. Mm-hmm. And so for us personally, the whole recruiting aspect is more just of a distraction. And so that's kind of the reason why we kind of is stuck with like a small locally ran brokerage.
How many people would you say is in your brokerage?
So there's probably 85, 90 agents in our brokerage. So it's not,
Do they cover all of Utah, or is it multiple states?
No, all of Utah. It's just local to Utah. But you'll find in a lot of real estate brokerages or in any industry, there's, the 1%ers, right? So like in our brokerage, let's say there's 85 agents, probably 15 to 20 agents, do most of the production, right? Because
we always call it the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, 80-20 rule. 20% of your people do 80% of the production, right? Yep. So that's kind of how it is in our industry as well. And a lot of people out there will know there's a lot of part-time real estate people that you run into, because that's the only downside of real estate is the barrier to entry is actually really low. Like you could go probably get your real estate license in, less than probably 6 months. And that's great, right? There's a lot of people out there that, close a couple deals a year for friends and family and just make a little bit of income on the side.
Yeah.
But there's never really that true expertise.
It's not the hustle.
Yeah. It's not a true profession, right? And so
I've heard people try and do the hacks of getting like the wife to get her license and then everybody that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's great. There's a lot of people that do that and find success. But no offense against the wife, right? But unless she is if she's really passionate about it or whatever and she wants to build that, that's great. But if it's just kind of a part-time thing, they're never really going to have that true expertise that, at least if you're wanting real good results, and whether you're a first-time home buyer or investor, you kind of want that true expertise in your corner, and the actual professionals who are doing this every single day and not just, closing 3 or 4 deals a year.
Yeah, it's kind of like a heart surgery. You want a doctor that does like one per year, or you one that's in somebody's chest every day.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And even like Grant Cardone, I'm sure that y'all listen to like sales books and all that stuff. He always says that like micromanagement, things like that, it's only a bad thing if you don't want success. know, so like sometimes to have involvement in your company, it's a good thing to ensure success.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
With your team right now, would you say, have you recruited people to start working in real estate, or is that something that you're not big on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, it's not something that I've focused on. Mm-hmm. I've only been in this industry for just over 5 years, like I said. So I feel like in real estate, the difference like in door to door, right? Like you said, right? You went from working at Chili's, to 2 or 3 years later, your life has changed through door to door, whether it's through recruiting and stuff like that. I think for real estate, the average real estate agent is in the industry for less than 2 years. So a lot of people, they'll get their license because it looks great. Yeah, all these people are making all this money. It's super easy, right? And then they realize actually how difficult it is to kind of sustain a real estate career, and they get out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think for me, this first 5 years has really been focused on building my craft, building my business, and helping as many people as I can, so that, as I get to a certain point, probably in the near future, I'll probably get to the point of wanting to extend that knowledge to other young agents and kind of turn it into a little bit more of a model of kind of teaching and training other agents, or at least just providing advice or helping other people that were in similar position kind of see success.
I like that a lot. And to relate that in what we do, so personal development is like what I always tell people is day one. Like when you start with us, like if you focus on becoming a good person, the sales is going to come natural for you. But it's a personal development. And I forget what book it is that I read it from, but it was this one thing. It said, if you want to become a millionaire, you have to change the lives of millions of people. Yeah. And I think about that all the time, and I think about in door-to-door sales. So I've been able to understand that when we're selling the product, we're selling incredibly high product. I mean, a high quality product.
Yep.
But because we're door to door and we don't pay for conventional advertising,
Yep.
we truly save homeowners like 50% of what other retail competitors would be offering.
For sure.
It's like I've dropped price and I've had old ladies be like, "Are you kidding
Jumping
me?"
for joy.
And they're just like that feeling whenever I'm like, "I'm right." Like you can get windows done,
No,
so
for sure.
it's my perspective. I'm truly helping these homeowners accomplish the goal that they have in mind.
Totally.
So on that end of it, but then I started to add that mindset to recruiting.
Yeah.
And my mindset, and this might be something you can take into
for sure.
for whenever you start to grow your teams. It's me providing the value and providing the systems to the people that come in to work with us to also change their life. I get to change their life by, for one, a lot of our recruits are from Louisiana. If you're from Louisiana, you work in the plants. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's outside.
They're working blue collar at Chili's, I guess, right?
Yeah, serving tables or working in the plants, and that's your options. But I mean, there's people that do other things down there too, but it's just there's a ceiling.
For sure.
And so I take it as by me bringing somebody out here, I'm giving them an opportunity to change their life as well. So on both sides of my business, from the selling side and from the growth side, I get to make an impact in people's lives. And that's what I think has helped me to have success in my experience as well, is because it's constantly adding value to people. And Grant Cardone, he always says, I may not sell every person, but I'll always leave an impression. And I think about that for the people that I try to bring on to come and do the job with us.
Yeah.
You may tell me no, but I'm going to do everything possible to make it a smooth transition for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't ever get discouraged by, if somebody tells me no, I don't get discouraged, on the sales side of it or for the recruiting side. So.
No, for sure. And that's something that I can definitely take away from you is like, because I haven't really gotten to that recruit aspect and I've kind of been focusing on helping the customer themselves, right? But, like there's a reason why a lot of the professionals aren't in the industry for more than a couple of years. And a lot of that is because they don't have the right guidance. They don't have the right systems and tools and stuff like that.
It's important.
It's really important. And that's what's been huge for me. Like, what's been different about me is I've sought out those mentors and those people, the top producers, let's say. One of the biggest turning points in my career has been finding one of the top producers in Utah and going and working alongside them.
Heck yeah.
Right? And learning from them.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. And that's been a huge turning point in my career, right? And so I want to be that. I will eventually want to be that outlet for other people, other young agents and stuff like that. So I think it's really cool that you guys are really focusing on that for other younger door-to-door recruits, and especially people, whether it's from Louisiana or different markets where they're not used to these opportunities. So it's very easy to change their life very quickly, right?
Yeah,
because
and
of those opportunities.
a lot of people didn't believe, especially windows. I tell everybody, I'm like, I do door-to-door sales. Most people in Louisiana are like, what's that?
Yeah,
because
they don't.
We live on 2 acres of land. Nobody comes up our driveway.
Yeah, no one's coming up knocking on your guys' doors.
So that's always kind of like the first, what, door-to-door sales, and then the second one's windows. People replace windows, and it's kind of like, you wouldn't believe, but it just kind of goes to show that there's so many opportunities out there. But it takes you as an individual seeking those opportunities to get out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's another thing you kind of mentioned, because you guys don't do conventional advertising methods, right? You're able to save the homeowner a lot of money. And that's kind of similar to another point on why I like to be kind of a part of these smaller brokerage models, is because a lot of these other larger models, you're paying a lot of money for all these gets and gadgets, and things like that. So that makes it harder to give more back to the clients, right? Give more to the people that you're working with, because you're already paying all these high fees. And so it's a very similar model as well. What we do, like, we're able to, help a lot more people because we're not having to pay large commission splits or, have our brokerage take half of our commission.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard of all the different kinds of like rev shares and stuff like that.
There's a bunch of stuff, and it works for a lot of people. That there's a reason those businesses are existing and thriving. But we just found a good system, and we kind of just stay in our own lane. And we might not have all the highest softwares and whatever, but we do a pretty dang good job at what we got, and helping people get where they want to go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, being 24, I got to say you're a hell of a sharp dude.
I appreciate
for sure.
it, man. Yeah.
What's kind of like you got like a kind of like a 2 to 5 year goal in mind of things you want to accomplish?
Yeah, man. I mean, I notice with what I do and the personality that I have, my goals are ever changing, right? If you ask me what my goals are today versus what they are, in the next year, they could take a complete 180. I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, honestly, and kind of doing your own thing is you're constantly reevaluating and looking at what you're doing and seeing what you want to accomplish, where we were kind of talking about that corporate lifestyle, right? When you're in that kind of box, you kind of have tunnel vision. And so it's really hard to expand your mind of like, what do I really want to accomplish? And so I would say in the next 2 to 5 years, a lot of the big goals for me are not only to continue to double down on my own business and helping people. Right now, on average, my goal for myself is to double every year, right? So, and it sounds unrealistic, but if you're in that growth mindset, it's amazing what's possible. When I mean double every year, my goal is to double my income every year, to double the amount of people I help every year, right? And shoot, now that we're started talking about it, I think one of my big goals is, starting to give back to other people who want to see that success and kind of teach them what I've learned along the way. But still seeking out mentors as well that, like, you always got to be sharpening the saw in sales or in, entrepreneurship. And so that's probably a big thing for me too, is continuing to surround myself with the right people and getting in the rooms with these top producers and these high earners to really kind of just make sure my mindset stays elevated and I'm able to continue to reach these goals for myself.
Yeah,
So,
self-accountability is huge. I think I've learned that as I got promoted to a regional. In my old position, I would still house people. I'd say, come live with me for 2 months. I'll show you how to do the job.
Yeah.
And that was like I call it my cheat code, because if somebody's in your house, I've got to be their example in every aspect.
For sure.
I've got to be up every day, first one up. I got to be cooking breakfast, because I can't tell this person to live that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'm not living it. And
for sure.
That was my cheat code of the day-to-day of how to hold myself accountable. Now at this new role, I'm a hire in the company. I'm over 6 offices. I found that the struggle has been self-accountability.
Oh, for sure.
I don't have somebody to hold me there.
Yeah, you got a lot of pressure to set the standard.
Yeah, that's been like a big growing challenge that I've experienced recently, is the aspect of doing that. But
for sure,
leaning into the right mentors. We were talking about it with the guy earlier, where we've got a personal trainer now who can keep up with you weekly. And it's just like, I feel like whenever your health and your wealth, your health is in sync, the wealth will follow. So I feel like things like that are just crucial for us to stay successful.
For sure. Yeah, that we could do a whole nother podcast on health. I'm kind of a health nut myself, and I agree. I think if you can't first take care of your mind and your body, like, doesn't matter how much success you build, it will crumble in an instant, because if you don't have health, you don't have anything, right? And I believe that you can't truly be at your best for your customers and whatever business you're doing unless you're taking care of not only your physical health, but also your mental health. And I agree with you. A lot of the reason why I do some of the things I do is to keep a high standard on myself, to keep myself accountable, to continue to do the right things every day. Like I said, the reason I've bought 5 properties so far, a big reason of that is so I can, look at my clients and say, hey, I'm not just trying to tell you to do this thing, right, when I'm not following it myself, right? I'm actually in the trenches with you every day, investing and owning real estate, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like, that's why I'm also big on social media and posting content, because I think the beauty about that is, at least for me, like, if I post a video saying, hey, try this out or do this, or I'm preaching something, like, I can't just be not following what I'm preaching and telling other people on the back end. So I think it is, like you said, it's a very fun thing to kind of create that self-accountability. And a lot of people, maybe you have to start with somebody else holding you accountable. But like you said, once you reach a certain level, there's not really anybody who's going to be there every day telling you what to do, and it's important to have those things in place.
Absolutely. So I'm sure in real estate too, I always like to ask people, so I'm sure you read some books.
Yeah, I read books. Yeah.
What's like 3 that have helped you to fix your mindset, get you where you're at today?
Oh man, that's a good question. I've read a lot of books over the years. I think that's been a because I didn't follow that like traditional education route, a lot of my
learn.
education was from books and podcasts and like this YouTube videos. Like
Yep.
I always joke that I'll write a book one day called YouTube University because like I watch a lot of YouTube starting out just on real estate and rentals and stuff like that. Probably books wise, I'll say a staple for me. Maybe a lot of people haven't heard of this one. Maybe they have. The Secret by Rhonda Rhimes. It's kind of more of a, you could call it voodoo-like book. Like it's all about vibrancy and like manifesting things and kind of the way to operate your mindset.
Yeah.
So that's not very like tactical, like business wise, but it really gets you in the right frame of mindset and just an abundant mindset to help you. So probably that one. From a financial standpoint, probably, I mean, everyone's heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That was a huge one for me to not only in real estate, but also just in adjusting my financial mindset and to really grow things there. Third one, probably, let's see, it's almost like I've read so many that I'm like, can't even just spit one out. Yeah, I don't know. They're probably, there's one that I'm reading right now that, is Negotiation Genius.
Okay.
I forget the author of that one, but that has been huge to help me on just like my day-to-day, because I do a lot of negotiating every single day. Like that's when I'm helping clients, I'm either negotiating on their behalf to a seller or on my seller's behalf to a buyer's agent, and working that every single day. So it's been very important for me to kind of really dial in those skills for myself and stay level headed and stuff like that. So that's been a good one for me too, but there's too many to name for sure.
So I've read the Rich Dad Poor Dad, but The Secrets and then
Negotiation Genius. That will help. I mean, in door to door, it's a lot of a quicker sales process, right? Which doesn't make it easier, but I
feel
think
like it's just good because it's at the level now. It turns from, as you move up the company, you're solving bigger problems, which are longer drawn out problems.
Yeah,
so I feel some of those books that may not be super applicable to the door-to-door side of it,
for sure.
In life, it's going to be applicable as you grow your business.
In life, for sure. I mean, in that book, it talks about, like, the very first thing it says is, like, you may think that you don't really need to know how to, you're negotiating different things every single day outside of business, right?
Have you ever read Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone?
I haven't read that one.
That's one that's just, it's how to win in life, and it's like how to negotiate in life. It's everything you do is selling or being sold.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like whether it's with your wife or, on the doors or, in your business. Another one that I love it's called Get to the Yes. Kind of probably similar. Just really, teaching for a lot of people who are watching this. I mean, they're probably in sales or, in some other avenue like those. That was something I didn't really start trying to hone in on, is like my sales skills. A lot of people in real estate, they get lost in like the referral based business, right? It's a lot easier to help your friends and family and people who already know you because they know you, they trust you, and you're able to help them. But once I've personally started to get into a lot more helping people that I don't really have a personal relationship before helping them. I need to be much more dialed for those people because I'm not their family member. I'm not necessarily their friend. We may become friends through the transaction, right, of helping them, but I have to be their advisor and I have to be really on top of my stuff so that I can help them get their best result possible. And so those books like that have been really helpful for me to kind of get more dialed as far as that goes. So
that's awesome. Well, yeah. Well, we love having you on. Definitely great to meet you as well.
Yeah, man. Great to meet you guys.
I can't wait for a year or two from now to see like how much we've grown just from this one podcast.
Yeah. No, I love doing these podcasts and just kind of, if there's anybody listening to this that any of this stuff connects to you, and I know, we can only cover so much stuff here, but like if buying a house with no money down or getting your first investment property for 10%, if any of that stuff resonates or, connects with people listening, like always feel free to reach out, and I'd love to stay connected with you guys and follow your journey on what you're doing in your business and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
And where can we find you at on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff?
Instagram's probably my main outlet. I need to do better on other social media platforms.
Instagram's
I'm pretty present on Instagram. I have a lot of content on there. It's just my full name, Porter Hawkins _RE for real estate. So that's where you can find me and see all the goofy videos and all the serious videos that I post. So try to keep it lighthearted.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you heard it here. Reach out if you have any questions. As always, we really appreciate the support. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and comment if you have any questions in regards to real estate or anything in general. We're here for you. So thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.